The story begins in a quiet, tired courtroom in Winston County. Mason Green, a 17-year-old black teenager, stands cuffed before a judge, accused of loitering and theft. The court is a place of routine and indifference, a setting where the outcome feels predetermined. Officer Carter Boyd, a seasoned security officer, stands nearby, his presence and body language conveying a cold conviction of Mason's guilt, even before a verdict is reached. The public defender is timid, and the judge seems to have already made up his mind. But the silence is broken by the arrival of a woman in a navy coat. She walks in calmly, without permission or fanfare, and sits down. Officer Boyd, used to his authority going unchallenged, confronts her. He demands to know who she is and tells her she doesn't belong there. She remains silent, simply holding a folder with a red seal. The tension escalates as Boyd continues his intimidation, eventually insulting Mason and calling him a thief and trash. At this point, the woman speaks for the first time. Her voice is clear and steady as she corrects Boyd, reminding him that Mason has not been convicted. She then reveals her identity. My son, Mason Green. The room falls silent. She then reveals the rest of her identity, telling the court that she is Jacqueline Green, the new police chief for the city of Winston. She states that she came to the courtroom to observe a case that concerns her son and to remind the court that justice does not begin with uniformed intimidation. The judge, taken aback, calls for a 10-minute recess. After the dramatic courtroom scene, Jacqueline Green wastes no time. The morning after the hearing, she goes to the police department's internal affairs office. She bypasses the usual bureaucracy and requests access to all closed case files involving Officer Carter Boyd, dating back 12 years. She wants no redactions and wants to see everything that never made it past internal resolution. As she reads through the files, a clear and disturbing pattern emerges. She finds multiple complaints from young men, defense attorneys, and even a fellow officer. The complaints detail allegations of excessive force, verbal threats, and procedural coercion. All of them were dismissed with vague, non-specific language like uncooperative subject and standard force. These dismissed complaints contrast sharply with Boyd's positive performance reviews, which consistently praised him for proactive street intervention. Jacqueline realizes that the department had a systemic problem, not just an individual one, where complaints were buried under paperwork. She also finds a handwritten, archived complaint from a woman named Lorraine Wexley, whose teenage son was allegedly shoved against a squad car and detained without charge. The complaint had been marked unsubstantiated. This file, more than any other, highlights the long-standing silence and lack of accountability within the department. Jacqueline knows what she has to do. She sits at a desk and begins listing the names from the complaints, not by the type of complaint, but by the human consequences: who changed schools, who stopped playing sports, and who moved away. Her final act of the day is to write the single word in her notebook and underline it twice: reopen. News of Jacqueline's investigation spreads quickly through Winston. It starts as a whisper and grows into a hum of hope and concern. People feel that something long buried is finally being brought to light. Jacqueline organizes a community meeting at the town's community center, a place full of memories. She addresses a room of both familiar and cautious faces, making it clear she isn't there to ask for trust, but to earn it. She explains that she's not just reviewing past cases, but reopening them, promising to listen to the stories that the police department once filed away. A tired woman asks, "What makes this time different?" And Jacqueline replies, "Because this time, we're not waiting for permission to care. We're starting with the truth. And if the system doesn't want it, we'll build one that does." This statement and her promise of legal support for those who come forward shifts the atmosphere of the room. An elderly veteran, Mr. Leon Daniels, stands up and gives his support, telling her not to stop no matter how hard they push back. Later that night, Jacqueline sits alone in her car outside the precinct. She thinks about the magnitude of what she has started and how she is sitting in the quiet of a department that has been running on the same systems for decades. She understands that change will be a long process, but she is ready for it. She closes her eyes and feels a sense of purpose living quietly beneath the noise, a purpose that gives her a sense of calm and movement. The next step in Jacqueline's plan is a public forum at the town's council chambers. The room is packed with people and the atmosphere is thick with anticipation. Jacqueline stands at the podium, not in her uniform, but in a simple navy dress, her presence commanding attention. She has a list of 20 names projected on a screen behind her, all citizens who filed formal complaints that were dismissed. She states that these are not numbers or statistics, but lives that were interrupted. Councilman Jerry Brooks questions her, pointing out the potential for liability and history in reopening these cases. Jacqueline stands firm, responding that integrity is what matters. A woman whose nephew was a victim of a suspicious traffic stop asks about the officer's fate, and Jacqueline says that accountability is not about punishment, but about making the town worthy of its children's future. The room starts to shift as people listen to her sincerity. Jacqueline then steps back, giving others space to speak. A teacher, a retired nurse, and a young man all come forward to share their stories of mistreatment by the police. These are not angry accusations, but honest testimonies of lived experiences. The public forum becomes a powerful space for truth-telling, revealing the long-held pain and silence of the community. At the end of the night, Councilman Jerry Brooks, a man who had long avoided confrontation, acknowledges that he believed things were fair because they were quiet, but silence can be deceiving. He admits that what Jacqueline brought to them was clarity, not noise. Jacqueline leaves the council hall, knowing that change has begun. The momentum of the public forum is followed by immediate pushback from within the department. Jacqueline receives an unsigned memo, a message cloaked in caution but threaded with a clear threat. It warns her that too much disruption too quickly risks institutional breakdown. She knows this is an attempt to intimidate her, and she won't back down. She goes to a conference room where several department heads, a deputy mayor, and Officer Boyd are waiting. She places her folder on the table and addresses them directly, stating that the department was already broken long before she arrived and that her work is not disruption, but repair. Deputy Mayor Ellis tries to argue for caution, citing concerns about public confidence and officer morale. Jacqueline counters his points with unwavering conviction, arguing that true confidence and morale come from truth and justice, not silence. Finally, Officer Boyd speaks up, accusing her of dragging the department through the mud for ghosts. Jacqueline responds with calm certainty. They weren't ghosts. They were citizens. And it's not the mud that hurts us. It's the refusal to clean it. The room falls into a tense silence as Jacqueline's words expose the core of the problem. Later, she goes to her office, where she and her team of analysts work on a report. She instructs a young analyst to publish a heat map of the town's stop and frisk incidents, including timestamps and badge numbers. She tells them that if they're not willing to name what they've done, they have no right to decide what happens next. The next big step in Jacqueline's plan is a public forum at the Winston Public Library's Community Auditorium. The room is filled to capacity with people from all walks of life, from elderly veterans to teenagers with cell phones, all united by a sense of anticipation. Jacqueline begins by making it clear that she is not there to speak for anyone, but to create a space for the unspoken to be heard. One by one, community members stand up and share their stories. An elderly school bus driver, Mr. Alvin Martin, speaks of seeing children pulled off corners for simply standing still, and how he's seen mothers hold their boys tighter, not because of gangs, but because of who patrols their blocks. A teenage girl named Kennedy shares how her 12-year-old brother, carrying floaties for swimming, was stopped for matching a description that was never specified. A white man admits his initial skepticism about Jacqueline's work, but then shares a story of how an officer questioned his granddaughter's identity and her relationship to him. Jacqueline listens to every person, offering no interruptions, just a steady acknowledgement that their stories are valid and real. Near the end of the evening, a young boy named Elijah, who wants to be a police officer, states that he wants to be the kind of officer who helps people feel safe. Jacqueline holds his gaze, a quiet promise passing between them. As the forum ends, Jacqueline stays behind, walking through the empty rows of chairs, picking up a folded note that reads, "Thank you for not being afraid. Some of us are still learning how."